Wendy and Brian, thanks so much for scheduling this time with us.
Thank you for having us.
Yes, we appreciate it.
Since Healthcare IQ Central has partnered with ForMed, we've had a lot of interest in your online programs. So we've scheduled a series of brief webinars to address and answer frequently asked questions and many other questions that might come up. So this week's focus, I'm pretty excited about. There's a lot of interest in this particular course, your Certified Meaningful Use Professional course. So Brian, I'm going to turn it over to you, and excited to hear more about the course.
Great. Well, you know, we've been going through some courses with you and your audience, Gwen, but I think of all of them, the greatest opportunity for folks who are candidates in particular may be around this Meaningful Use course for a number of reasons that we'll get into, but it's certainly one of our most popular courses, and there's a lot of benefit that it can bring to folks.
Oops.
Oops.
Here we go. All right.
All right, bear with us as we wrangle with the slideshow. Thank you. All right, so here's some of the questions we're going to look at today. We're going to move through them relatively quickly and save time for folks to ask questions as well. So let's move on to the first, or the next slide, if you don't mind, Wendy.
Sure.
All right, what is ForMed training? Well, just some quick background. ForMed Approved is one of the leading providers of health IT education online today. We have a variety of courses around HIT, EHR, HIPAA, Meaningful Use, and these courses were developed by industry experts working with us closely here at ForMed Approved. Our courses are self-paced. They're entirely online. They're widely recognized in the industry. We have a number of prestigious education partners who use our education, and the courses are accredited through Core Excel for nursing CEUs recognized by ANCC, and college credit by ISET. And so that's just a brief overview of our training. How does it work? Part of what people like about our training and part of why it's successful is that so folks come into a learning system. They can take the course on their own schedule. If they need to go do something, they can come back and resume right where they left off. But as they move through the course, it's made up of modules, and each module has what we call the 10-10-10 method. So there's approximately 10-minute text read. So there's a text lesson that will go through, you know, in this case, some topic in meaningful use. And then the same content is reviewed in a video module. So people can watch that video or listen to the audio and get the same information another way. It's a great review. And then finally, that module will end with a quiz where it tests the user on whether they understood the material, and that then they move through modules, each of them 10-10-10, toward the final exam. And it really prepares people for that final exam. We have a very high success rate, partly because the final exam is made up of questions in those quizzes. So if you go through the modules diligently, by the end, you should have no questions about the content.
And I just wanted to add in that 10-10-10 method, one of the interesting, I was just talking to one of our partners about this the other day, but one of the interesting commentary that we get on a regular basis around the audio-video narration component is that people like that aspect of the training because it allows them to continue on with their tasks of the day, almost like an audio book.
Yeah.
So that they can keep an eye or a corner of the screen up with the audio-video narration and still be, you know, typing codes or entering things in to their regular day-to-day activities.
Yeah, and for me, it's pleasant to listen to. It's the narration is by a professional voice professional. It's really great stuff.
It is. It is.
What types of employers recognize ForMed training? Well, you can see some of them on the screen here. Maybe Wendy could address some of these folks.
Right. So, you know, we have a lot of partners in the ForMed learning universe. Many of them are providing our training out to their membership, their channel partners, their buyers and clients, and that includes both nonprofit and for-profit groups, medical associations, technology companies, RECs, lab services groups, colleges, universities, all kinds of different employers and partners that provide our training to their various audiences. So because we have such a well-rounded partner channel, and we've had a lot of feedback from a lot of these folks, we feel that this really is an opportunity for new visitors through Healthcare IT Central to understand and have access to these training programs, opening up opportunity for them to find improved or enhanced employment opportunities into all these different types of employer environments. So,
this is why we're here today. What courses are available? Well, today we're going to talk about our Certified Meaningful Use Professional course. As I was saying before, this is one of our most popular courses, partly because you cannot find this training anywhere else. There's very little training around meaningful use out there, and you can find resources from the government if you're willing to wade through, dozens and dozens to hundreds of pages on the CMS website, but that's really not the way to learn this stuff. So we brought everything together. It was developed, as the slide says, by a real-world meaningful use attestation specialist who has a lot of real-world experience in attestation and guiding practices through it. So it gives you that depth of understanding, but it's also very pragmatic and focused on what you really need to know to successfully attest. The course is very comprehensive. So it covers stage one. It begins with sort of a lay of the land. This is where meaningful use comes from. This is why the government is pursuing it. These are the incentives that are available to folks who do it. And then it gets into the details of what the requirements are. So many people are still in stage one at this point, or everyone is. We're getting ready for stage two, which I'll get to in a moment. But for stage one, under meaningful use, if you're not that familiar with the program, you're either classified as, it's tied to individual doctors, so it's either an eligible professional who's in private practice or an eligible hospital, and then their doctors are under that category of the eligible hospital. The requirements are made up of various objectives. There's core objectives that you have to meet, and then there's menu objectives that you can select a certain number of them to meet. There's an important part of it is also what are known as clinical quality measures, or CQMs. These are really efforts to have clinicians use information technology in a way that will promote improved care for the patient. That is probably the hardest part of the course because they're fairly complex, but you have to understand that stuff to attest successfully. And as we're going to talk about here in a bit, if you can help a practice get through this material, you will be invaluable to them, but I'll save that for the next slide. It also covers HIPAA requirements. An important part of meaningful use is HIPAA. So in order to attest for meaningful use, one of the first things you have to do is demonstrate that you've had a risk analysis for HIPAA around your meaningful use technology. So it discusses those requirements. And then it concludes with an action plan where it says, if you're in a practice that has never attested for meaningful use, this is how you should begin, this is how you should plan, these are the steps you should go through to successfully navigate the process and get that practice their incentives.
Absolutely. And it does apply to a number of different audiences. So we did want to address that. We find that the CMUP course has been a helpful addition in the learning stages for lots of different audiences, and Brian can talk to that, as Brian is plugged in on a daily basis to the students that are pushing through our various courses. He has had a lot of feedback from a lot of different participants in this program.
Absolutely. So, and we really have had a wide variety of students take this course and really find it to be valuable. So there's, for one of the groups that is addressed on the slide, is management level staff who are trying to oversee this process. It really gives them an understanding of how it works, even if they're not necessarily the one executing the attestation. It gives them that holistic view of it so that they can go in and sort of guide the process and work with the person doing the attestation to make sure that they meet their requirements. But there's also, we've had a lot of people who are actually clinicians. We've had nurses go through it. We've had a lot of consultants go through it as well.
Practice managers.
Absolutely. So there's a lot of people out there who need this information, and they have almost universally said that this course has just opened their eyes to meaningful use. It's really been a valuable course for them.
Absolutely. And it distills, it takes a lot of what is, if you were to go out and try to absorb this information from some of the government websites, or even in some cases, the white papers that are linked to some of the vendor websites, you might find that it's relatively dense. What this does, and why I think it works well in the 10-10-10 method, is that it actually distills that information into bite-sized and topic areas that are easily retained.
Absolutely. And so, you know, I watch meaningful use webinars all the time. I'm out there looking at meaningful use materials just to sort of see what else is out there. And I've never seen anything that brings all the information together in one place and makes it relatively simple to understand. I mean, it is meaningful use, so there's some complexity there, but it cuts away all the things you don't need to know and focuses on the things you do need to know.
Correct.
If I can add a quick question that I don't think we've covered. Brian, how long typically does this course take to complete?
Okay, so this course is accredited for 9.5 hours, and that it does take probably in that range of time. Someone might get through it in about 8 hours if they, you know, already understand meaningful use well and they went through it quickly. They could do that. Some folks take a little longer, and that's one of the advantages of our system is that if you need more time to understand the content, you can go through it as many times as you want. If you're struggling with one particular section, you can review it again and again until you do understand it. So this is really the big question, the question that everyone wants to know the answer to. How will this course make me more competitive in the job market? And I think of all the courses we offer, this one may stand out as being the one that would be the biggest resume booster for a lot of different folks out there.
Absolutely.
And the reason why is that there's so much interest and concern in medical organizations around meaningful use right now. And part of the reason why is that, as I was saying before, people have been in stage one. Not everyone has even started stage one.
Right.
Some folks are well down the road on stage one. But just as they grasp that, we're coming right up on stage two now, and that is the reason why this represents a huge opportunity for people. Stage two is coming in 2014. There's tremendous concern about the ability of practices to meet it. If you understand the requirements, practices certainly can meet stage two of meaningful use, but they need your help to do it. And if you can guide them through this process, or even just provide them with insights into how they should go about it, that will bring tremendous value to them, and it will really make a candidate stand out, because everyone's looking for information on this, everyone's a little nervous, and bringing that skill set to a practice would be a real value add for them.
Yeah, and I can absolutely say that, first of all, we have numerous partners in lots of different verticals who are using this training to train their current staff, their internal staff, which speaks to the fact that a lot of different types of employers, and I'll give you some examples. We have some EHR companies who are using this to train their internal staff to have a better understanding.
I think that's remarkable. You know, you've got EHR companies, they're relying on this training to understand meaningful use.
Exactly, and to make sure that their staff, who are either, you know, selling their products or supporting their products out to those medical practices, have this knowledge. And then we have lab services companies that are using this training to help guide their support folks that are out in the field, and so you know, there are numerous employers that are seeing this as a value add to their current staff. So if you came to that employer with this knowledge already cooked, ready to go, and certified and stamped, and my guess is that would be a huge thumbs up for them.
Absolutely. And then as a final note here, stage two is just beginning, but stage three is the final stage at this point of meaningful use. We just have sort of the broad outlines of what it's going to entail, but it is coming, and the government will release more information on it before too long. And because when you purchase this course, you have access to it for a year, we update it as they release information. So if the government does issue preliminary standards around stage three, we will update the course in very short time, and you'll have access to that information as well, and no one
no one's going to be providing that.
Yeah, you won't find that anywhere else, I assure you.
Right, and again, what's nice about our learning management system and our annual access to that seat, to that license for this course, is that, again, when we make an update or add a documentation or update a module, you're, as a student of that course, you will receive a notification, and you will know that something has been modified or added, and you can pop right back into your existing login and review that new module.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
So as our last slide here, how do I go about buying this thing, and how can I get a discount? Well, for our listeners here with Gwen and Health IT Central, you can go to her website and use the discount code HITC to go ahead and get that 20% discount when you purchase the course. you'll immediately receive an email from our learning system inviting you to log in. And then, as I was saying before, you can learn at your own pace. It's entirely on your schedule.
We do have a couple of questions in the question box, Gwen. If you don't mind, we're just going to extend a short bit here and address a couple of these questions.
That'd be great.
Great. One of the questions is, what role might someone fulfill by having this meaningful use training available to them?
Well, and so we mentioned that a little bit. So it would be everyone from EHR specialists who are working inside a practice to, we've had tremendous interest from consultants who do that sort of work in this, to people who are medical practice managers is another big category for us. So those are folks who are sort of often by default put in charge of making sure the meaningful use attestation happens, and this gives them the education they need to understand that. What are some other examples? Can you?
Well, yeah, so in a medical practice, if you were to apply for a position, if you're, for instance, an office specialist, somebody who works in that front office or back office area of a medical practice, an ambulatory site, a clinic, etc., this certification will absolutely give you a leg up in that application process. Those employers are going to be looking for somebody with that level of knowledge and that understanding of meaningful use, and that they will see that as a huge benefit. I think certainly that's one. Anything in the support field that is related to electronic health records, anything in the, even in quite frankly in the sales field related to electronic health records as well. But any of those roles connected to working with a medical environment on any level, all medical environments now are required to have electronic health records, and the more you know about them and the more that you can assist that site with the attestation steps and the requirements surrounding meaningful use, the more valuable you will be.
That's a great point, because meaningful use is such a large program. It really has impacted healthcare in such a broad way that there's tremendous opportunity because of it. And, whether it's the front office staff, that would really make those folks stand out. But I was intrigued by you mentioning sales staff, because we have had folks who are in that role go through the course as well. And, in healthcare, so much of sales is about being that trusted advisor to the practice who can help them understand things that they're struggling with. And if you can go in and talk to them about meaningful use, you're really just...
Right. Well, there's a certain component of talk the talk, right? So yeah. Any kind of business associate that works in any level, on any level with healthcare and medical practices, if you have a depth of knowledge around meaningful use and you can speak to that intelligently, they're gonna see you as a sort of a high level advisor.
Right.
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 So another question that has popped up is related to the details in the course, and just a little bit more maybe from Brian about what component modules are involved in this course?
Sure. So I reviewed them a little bit. I'll just describe them very quickly. As I said, meaningful use is arranged by stages. So the course moves through that same sort of material. So as I was saying before, it sort of gives you the lay of the land, and then it goes into stage one, and it talks about the timelines. It goes into great detail about the money that's available, because that's why there's so much interest in this. That's really what it comes down to in the end. Meaningful use, the purpose of it is to improve care and to encourage the adoption of electronic health records, but also that clinicians will use them in a way that promotes healthcare and improved outcomes. So in the first stage, you've got those timelines, and then you have to go through and make sure that you're meeting all of the core objectives and then the menu objectives. So we start with the eligible professionals. Those are folks who are in an ambulatory environment. And then we go through the same thing for hospitals. The standards are very similar, but there are some differences around that. Then we go through the clinical quality measures for both, and then we move on to stage two and go through the same materials for them. And one of the things that makes sense about this is the stages build on each other. So they have different themes. Stage one was sort of like, basics of adopting the system and making it work properly, recording data. Stage two has a lot to do with patient engagement and really healthcare, exchange of healthcare information between systems. So the second stage will incorporate standards from the first stage, so it builds one on top of the other, and the education does the same thing. So it goes through, and you're building on your knowledge as you go through, Then we address those HIPAA considerations, which are very important in meaningful use. You know, there's a robust audit regime going on now for meaningful use, which is another opportunity because a lot of practices have attested and they may have not, you know, crossed every T and dotted every I, and so they need to be careful that they're doing it properly. And I think growing awareness of that also helps you stand out.
Yes, absolutely. And I did want to just reiterate that for those of our students or folks on the webinar today that have either a CEU requirement for their nursing role, or they have an interest in acquiring convertible college credit. We do have all these courses, and this course in particular are accredited for both of those continuing education units as a benefit of completing that course with a successful grade. There is a question from someone asking about meeting meaningful use objectives prior to attestation. There is a lot of individual or detailed instruction around the attestation component, correct?
Yeah, that's what, so when you get into the attestation plan, for one thing, there's sections of this that are essentially checklists where you can take out the, you know, when I say it goes into detail about, for instance, clinical quality measures, it's quite detailed. And so you can take those lists and just go down the list as you're working through your EHR to make sure that you're recording. It's mostly a matter of making sure the EHR is recording that data and that you're entering it properly. So that's one consideration. But then when you get to the attestation plan, the action plan at the end, then it really sets you up and says, make sure you're tracking these things, make sure you're tracking those things. And so it really guides you through what you need to do to organize and succeed in that attestation.
We have one more question asking if this certification would be helpful for someone in the project management role.
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is, in fact, quite frankly, I think if I had to put a number one on the list of people that should have this course under their belt if they're working with medical environments as a PM, I would say this certification, in addition to whatever project management level skills that they have in place. And, you know, with that said, we also do have an electronic health record project management course that we provide that helps folks who are in a PM role understand a little bit more about healthcare. But it also does, I would say this meaningful use course in particular really does, you know, put that red bow around that project management skill set.
Definitely.
And I'd like to add too, I've noticed in the last couple of weeks actually on Healthcare IT Central new job titles, and one of them is Meaningful Use Project Manager.
Oh,
right.
wow.
So yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. So there you go. And Meaningful Use Consultant. So,
yes.
You know, I'm not saying that this 10-hour class will immediately qualify you for those positions, but it will certainly, you know, help you secure positions like that if you've got the rest of the background requirements. So definitely, this is an up-and-coming opportunity. I think now's a great time to jump in and get those requirements and, you know, become super competitive.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's funny because as you're talking about that, we have a question in the box that says, you know, here's somebody who's been in the industry for a long time, over 12 years, and would this course benefit them to find new positions or roles? And again, I have to say the answer to that is absolutely, because this is, and one of the reasons that this course is so popular, I think, is because this information is new, and new.
Yeah.
So if you're coming in and you're saying, hey, I've got 12 years of experience in the industry, not only do I have that experience, but I'm completely up to date on the newest information.
Right.
I think that just absolutely speaks to your willingness to stay up to date and connected, etc. And in that way, I think, you know, it would be a huge benefit for somebody who, particularly for somebody who's got that additional experience and can speak to that.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. All right, well, we're not seeing any other questions right now, so we want to thank everyone for joining us today, and thank you, Gwen, for having us. It's been another good session. Glad to see those questions.
Yeah. Thank you all very much. I just wanted to say one more thing, just remind everyone that that HITC coupon code will work not only on this Meaningful Use course with ForMed, but any of the ForMed courses. So, you know, you may want to take a look. They've got a lot of terrific. Their curriculum is terrific, and I've just gotten amazing feedback from our community members who have taken your classes. So I appreciate the partnership very much.
Well, we certainly do too, Gwen. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And I think we have another one coming up. Next one up is on the HIPAA course. Is that right?
Next one up, I think, is on the recruiter course.
Oh, the recruiter course.
That's right.
Yeah,
Near
the recruiter course.
to my heart.
Yes, that's a
Absolutely.
great course.
Yeah, well, that said, if the recruiter course is next, I will just throw in one last plug. The September 23rd HIPAA deadline is coming up. So if you're in and around Gwen's version of our training store, take a look at our HIPAA training as well, because that's a pressing issue on top of the meaningful use deadlines and attestation issues as well.
Yeah, there's a lot of people running around right now trying to get their HIPAA in order. So.
Exactly.
That's a visual. Thanks.
Yeah,
Brian.
yeah.
All right, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.